That fluffy white bread you're eating, it's nutritionally closer to cardboard than real food. But did you know that ancient bread was different? Ancient bread wasn't just sustenance, it was medicine, currency, and sometimes the difference between life and death. While our ancestors built civilizations on bread's power, we've turned it into a slow poison. What catastrophic mistake did modern bakers make that ancient ones would have considered insanity? It turns out the secret lies in time, something we've forgotten how to use. Egyptian workers building the pyramids received daily bread rations containing 30% more protein than modern loaves. They ground their grain finer and cooked it with alkaline ash from wood fires, which preserved the protein structure better than today's acidic commercial acids. And they fermented for days in clay pots that acted as primitive probiotic incubators. This created a bubbly honeycomb texture full of beneficial microbes and minerals that today's rushed baking simply can't match. But no one prized bread more than the Romans. Their thick-cut black bread was so dense a single pound could fuel a day's march. Try that with today's spongy slices that dissolve into sugary paste on your tongue. No wonder ancient Rome had public ovens where citizens could bake their own fresh loaves, fostering community and good health. Theirs wasn't the sweet, soft white stuff that's erased flavor and nutrition from our diet. Modern science confirms our worst fears. That beautiful golden crust your supermarket loaf wears. It's often caramel coloring, not real Maillard reaction. The whole wheat label. Frequently lies most are just white flour with molasses sprayed on for deception. Even more horrifying, industrial yeast strains have won 1/100th the nutritional diversity of ancestral sourdough starters. Some commercial breads even contain dough conditioners also used in yoga mats. But here's what will shock you most. When researchers at the University of Vienna recreated 4,000-year-old bread using ancient grains and fermentation methods, volunteers' gut health improved more in 2 weeks than from any probiotic supplement. How can this be? Those coarse, dark loaves our ancestors ate contained 800 strains of beneficial bacterion, entire ecosystem now extinct in modern bakeries, the brand they couldn't remove. Packed with prebiotics that fed their microbiome better than any modern superfood. The tragic irony? We've bred wheat to be softer and sweeter at the cost of its very soul. Modern dwarf wheat contains 40% less magnesium, half the zinc, and none of the enzymes that made bread digestible for millennia. That fresh smell in plastic-wrapped loaves? Often shelf-life chemicals that prevent mold by killing all microbial life, including what's left of the nutrition. You see, our modern world prizes speed and uniformity over nourishment. And while ancient bread was imperfect, uneven, it was alive with natural variation and teeming with beneficial microbes. In fact, bread making was once the world's most widespread human activity outside of mothering. Each loaf an act of alchemy, turning inert grain into life-giving sustenance. In the 19th century, a French physician named Raphael Borel taught the world's first hygiene and sanitation practices, saving countless lives. Yet when he died, his funeral procession included a hearse carrying a single loaf of dark rye bread. For this unsung hero understood that humanity's greatest gift to man came not from medicine or monuments, but humble loaves of fermented grain. Today, though, we've replaced that sacred tradition with mass production, turning bread, once a symbol of sharing and community, into an individual snack best enjoyed alone in front of a screen. The statistics are chilling. 1/3 of all grain grown worldwide is dedicated to animal feed, yet 3/4 of all livestock are fed grain. Why? Because overgrazing and erosion have depleted grasslands. So instead of nourishing people, we're burning calories feeding cattle who convert 10 times as much into beef, trapping carbon in giant feedlots instead of spreading nutrients across the land. And it gets worse. Our industrialized food system wastes 30 to 40% of all grains from harvesting to your plate, leaving topsoil exposed and vulnerable to erosion. This ecological catastrophe fuels climate change, destroying the very ecosystems we depend on for survival. When we stray too far from traditional wisdom, the consequences can be dire. Consider the Irish famine of the 1840s. A potato blight swept Ireland, killing over 1 million people when it reached India. An official inquiry sent back word, send the potatoes to Ireland, completely missing the point. The real problem was a lack of dietary diversity, not a potato shortage. Yet that myopic advice led to further devastation. By then, starvation had set in. Eating bread was considered insanity. After generations of displacement and poverty, Irish immigrants arrived in America unable to afford meat or dairy. So they turned to the cheapest, easiest source of calories, white flour bread, which stripped away the very fiber needed to keep them full and caused digestive diseases like cancer to skyrocket. No wonder the United States became the world leader in bread consumption per person, consuming 46 pounds per year. But that habit has devastating global repercussions. American farms now spray 370 million pounds of pesticides over 24 million acres annually, enough to kill 300,000 bald eagles. All that chemical warfare poisons wildlife, contaminates our water and soils, and weakens our own immune systems. Ancient bakers didn't have fancy equipment, but they did something we've lost: patience. It took the time to let nature do its work, fermenting for days, even weeks. That slow process developed flavors and textures that modern methods simply can't match. And the results weren't just delicious, they were profoundly healthy. For example, sourdough uses naturally occurring wild yeast and bacteria in a starter that's cultivated over time. That tangy flavor and chewy texture come from hundreds of species working together to break down starches and produce beneficial acids, vitamins and minerals. One study found that sourdough bread was 20 times more digestible than regular bread because those same wild yeasts break down gluten, casein, and other proteins, making it easier on our guts. Roman soldiers relied on this superior nutrition to stay fueled on their campaigns. Bakers carried portable ovens and long-handled spatulas to cook up hot loaves right in the forum. The emperor's personal bakers were prized professions, requiring years of training. This wasn't just food, it was an art form. Italian physician and author of Bread, History of a 10,000-Year-Old Cuisine, Gian Piero Francescello explains. In antiquity, bread wasn't just something you ate, it was part of everything. It was money, culture, religion. It brought people together. Here in the US, we eat nearly twice the amount of bread recommended by the World Health Organization, replacing fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. But if everyone switched to ancient breads, we could reduce dietary-related diseases like diabetes by 40%. And our prescription or policy could have that impact. Even in emergencies, ancient wisdom offers solutions. During the siege of Leningrad, residents subsisted on just 91 calories per person per day, mostly from stale rye bread. Amazingly, children suffered less from malnutrition than adults because they relied on breast milk, which provided essential nutrients not found in flour and water. That siege demonstrated the crucial role of breastfeeding, leading to a baby boom after the war. But there is hope. Today, a new generation of bakers and scientists are rediscovering traditional techniques like stone grinding, long fermentation, and ancient grains. These artisan breads offer complex flavors, textures, and nutrition that supermarket loaves can't compete with. However, unless we address overpopulation, overconsumption, and overgrazing, even the healthiest breads won't save us. As Francescello says, our relationship with bread will determine our future. So what catastrophic mistake did ancient bakers make that they would consider insanity? They took their time. They nurtured their ingredients. They valued the process over the product. They understood that real bread wasn't just sustenance. It was medicine. It was community. It was life itself. While we've perfected the art of mass production, we've sacrificed the soul of bread. Now we must reclaim that legacy, not just for ourselves, but for our children and our planet. Will you take the first bite? Will you share this story with others? Together we can rewrite the next chapter in bread's epic tale, ensuring it remains the staff of life for generations to come.